Let's bring in Menzies Research Centre Senior Fellow Nick Cater. Nick, we'll start with Treasurer Jim Chalmers. He's been talking to the big end of town. He's told business leaders at a closed-door meeting with the Business Council of Australia in Canberra that he wants to make it easier to invest, easier to hire, easier to trade and easier to do business in Australia. He said he's going to do this by cutting red tape. This follows a number of industry groups expressing serious concerns about Labor's economic credentials, particularly Labor's crippling net zero obsessions. Can modern Labor go from a high taxing, high regulation party into one that is pro-business?
Well, look, there's plenty of red tape to cut, of course, Rita, much of which Jim Chalmers has been responsible for putting in place and his colleagues. So, look, I applaud the instinct, and I also applaud the fact that they're going to look at using AI, artificial intelligence, more, because this is a government that certainly lacks intelligence a lot of the time. And I did have this idea, perhaps they could even plug the Prime Minister into some AI machine, then he might actually say something that is vaguely useful. You know, he might actually answer questions, significant questions, with the help of ChatGPT or something plugged into him. So, look, I mean, it's the same old, isn't it? You know, don't forget what we've done for the last 3 years. Just listen to what we're promising to do for the next. I think Australians learnt their lesson about that in 2022.
Well, you're so right, because not only have we seen an increase in red tape, we've seen now an increase in green tape, black tape. This is not a pro-business government in any sense of the word. So we would have to see a fairly dramatic turnaround from their first term in government. Let's hear now from Greens leader Adam Bandt, who had another Trump-induced tantrum over the president's plans to rebuild Gaza.
This is wrong. This is the end of international law. This is Donald Trump talking about the takeover of another country, potentially by force. The Australian government must make it clear that it opposes this move that is in clear violation of international law.
The end of international law, no hyperbole there. And he wants the Albanese government to step in. Nick, what is Adam Bandt suggesting there?
Well, international law, he claims, is a breach. But you know, surely, Rita, and you put a suggestion in your head. I think it's time to make Lefties Losing It a 24/7 segment, because under Donald Trump, he is generating so much of it. But not only in America, but on this side of the Pacific too, that surely you must be full of ideas for content with stuff that Adam Bandt pours out daily and his colleagues.
You could just do a whole segment devoted to the Greens here in Australia if you really wanted to. Every single day they're providing content of Lefties Losing It. But Adam Bandt does have some support from, well, far-left ideologues like the thoroughly ridiculous Francesca Albanese, who was given a platform to spew her anti-Trump, anti-Israel nonsense on where else but the ABC. Here she is on Radio National this morning.
This is nonsense. And at the same time, it cannot be ignored because it's absolutely, utterly unlawful. This is what Indigenous people do. They stick to the land because the land is not where they live. The land is who they are. And this is why the Palestinians are not going anywhere.
Nick, I do wonder if she's confused about who the actual Indigenous population of that region is. And I've got to wonder why the ABC give airtime to this woman who's accusing Australia and Israel of genocide.
Would you say the same thing of the Aboriginal genocide in Australia? So, excuse me, I mean, there has never been such a consensus of human rights organizations, in genocide scholars and others that this is genocide. However, keep on telling what you think, but this is a genocide.
Nick, what are the ABC thinking?
Well, it's certainly the ABC company line, isn't it? And, you know, I was beginning to think perhaps she was actually an actual host. She's in there so often. And I take it Francesca Albanese, no relation, surely, but I think she's echoing in her extreme views about Aboriginal sovereignty, or should I say First Nations sovereignty, sorry, that she's just echoing really what Albanese has said. And if you remember, I mean, she intruded in a quite inappropriate way as a UN representative during the Voice debate, in a domestic political debate. And I think she's, you know, of course, it would be nice to ask for her to be recalled and taken back home, but I think she's probably not even extreme enough for some people at the UN.
Now, US President Donald Trump has signed a hugely significant executive order today banning biological men from competing in women's sport.
Female athletes have been forced onto the front lines, and men claiming to be girls have stolen more than 3,500 victories, that's a lot, and invaded more than 11,000 competitions designed for women.
Nick, this is a momentous day for girls, for women, and any feminist who actually cares about women's rights should be celebrating this move.
Absolutely, and I was in Washington for the inauguration, as you know, and because I couldn't get into the official events that you were at, I was watching it in a sports bar, and the biggest cheer of the day during the inauguration speech was when he announced the two-gender policy. People were so excited about that. One woman had tears in her eyes. So this is an issue which, although, you know, doesn't get talked about hardly at all in the mainstream media in any frank way, but ordinary people, most Americans and most Australians believe this is such absolute common sense that really, I mean, why should the president even have to say it? But unfortunately he does, because our sense of up and reality has been so distorted in the last 15 years.
Which begs the question why we're not seeing the coalition, why we're not seeing Peter Dutton lean into this issue. There was a piece on the ABC saying that he's been encouraged to do that. Even the National Party wants him to do that, and he's declining. And I can't see the rationale here, because this is an issue where 80% plus are on the same page. And we're talking about Labor voters, certainly Conservative voters, are sick of the excesses of the trans movement, or sick of all this gender nonsense. So why do we have both the Coalition and Labor too frightened to tackle this issue?
I think it's been turned into such a hot political and nasty political issue by the trans lobby that I think that there is some reluctance in the Liberal Party amongst senior advisors to go there if they don't have to. But I would say to Peter Dutton, and I know he's a great fan of the show, so he'll no doubt be watching, please have every confidence in doing this, because you're going to, you know, you're going to get torn to shreds in the Sydney Morning Herald and on the ABC and the Guardian and all these other places. But everywhere else in Australia, in the places where people will actually vote for you, they will be applauding.
Absolutely. Don't be scared to pick a fight with the media. I think that's a lesson that our politicians can learn from the US, Canada, Argentina, increasing number of countries around the world where the politicians are just boldly challenging that media narrative and not worried about the backlash. Before you go, New South Wales Housing Minister Rose Jackson has been caught up in the taxpayer-funded chauffeur car scandal. Here's what she had to say earlier today.
I didn't even know I was going away, certainly didn't know any of the details. Had nothing to do with planning the logistics, had nothing to do with any of the bookings, had no knowledge of any of those arrangements.
She seems to know nothing about anything. There you go. You might remember this minister from a couple of months ago when she seemed to think that to rent a two-bedroom apartment in Sydney would only cost a couple of $100s a week. She doesn't seem to be familiar with her own portfolio or her own arrangements. Should she step down, Nick?
I think she should definitely step down, but I think more than that, I think they should look at disendorsing her, because, you know, Labor is supposed to be the party of the people, right? The workers, the ordinary people. she's clearly not one of those. You know, she grew up in I guess, a privileged home as the daughter of an ABC presenter. So, you know, I mean, good on her. She's a nice lady and all that. But she's completely and absolutely out of touch, not just with the pub and the pub test, but any sort of common sense test at all. And she's really going to continue to do Labor more harm than good in a frontline role like that.
Nick Cater, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.